Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host. Welcome back to Marvelous Gaming. Today, we're going to take a ride through the twisted and awesome world of Castlevania. You know the drill, endless night, creepy castles, and our favorite whip-cracking heroes going head-to-head with the big bad Dracula. From the Belmont clan to our cool, moody pal, Alucard, we've seen a bunch of characters trying to put Dracula back into his long nap. And let's not forget the truckload of games. Sequels, prequels, you name it, each one tossing a new puzzle piece into this gigantic, sometimes head-scratching Castlevania jigsaw. So grab your controller or just a comfy seat and join me as we jump into this roller coaster timeline of every major Castlevania game ever. It's going to be a wild, nostalgic, and maybe a bit spooky journey, but hey, that's how we like it, right? Let's get started. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, 1997. The story kicks off with a bang, literally, at the end of the previous game, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Fast forward 4 years and we're thrown into a world where Richter Belmont, the hero who defeated Dracula, has mysteriously disappeared. Enter Alucard, Dracula's own son, waking from his slumber to investigate the re-emergence of Dracula's castle and Richter's vanishing. It's a gripping tale of family drama, dark secrets, and a castle filled with the unknown. As I remember playing it, I couldn't help but feel drawn into Alucard's quest, as if I was part of this gothic supernatural world. Now, this gameplay is where Symphony of the Night truly stands out and sets itself apart from its predecessors. The game tosses the traditional linear gameplay out the window, opting for a non-linear exploratory experience that had me hooked. As Alucard, you're not just running and whipping your way through levels. Instead, you're exploring this massive interconnected castle, finding new abilities and items that let you access previously unreachable areas. And don't get me started on the inverted castle, a genius twist that doubles the gameplay and challenge. Also, the soundtrack's an absolute masterpiece. It sets the mood perfectly and has some of the most memorable tunes in gaming history. Castlevania Rondo of Blood, 1993. Castlevania Rondo of Blood holds a special place in the hearts of many gamers, myself included. Let's break down what makes this game such a beloved entry in the Castlevania series. This one takes you back to the rich and dark universe of Castlevania, which takes place in 1792. We follow the young and brave Richter Belmont, heir to the legendary vampire killer whip and direct descendant of Simon Belmont. The plot thickens when Richter's beloved Annette is kidnapped by Dracula's servant, Shaft. It's classic Castlevania storytelling, a mix of gothic horror and a heroic quest. Richter's journey through Dracula's castle, facing off against classic monsters and bosses, is both enthralling and nostalgic. Personally, I felt every moment of tension as Richter fought to save Annette and confront Dracula himself. It's a storyline that pulls you in and doesn't let you go. Now, let's see what the gameplay is all about. As Richter, you navigate through 9 stages, each with multiple routes and endings. This design choice adds a level of replayability that keeps you coming back for more. Richter's main weapon is his trusty whip, supplemented by a variety of sub-weapons like the axe and holy water. What I really love about this game is the introduction of Maria Renard as a playable character. She's not just a damsel in distress, she's a powerful character with unique abilities, adding a whole new dimension to the gameplay. I mean, playing as Richter and Maria offers a dynamic experience that keeps the game fresh and exciting. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, 2003. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is another standout game in the Castlevania series, and I've got a lot to say about it. It's not just another entry in the series, it's a game that redefines what Castlevania can be. Coming to the story, it's set in 2035, a futuristic twist for the series. We follow Soma Cruz, a teenager with a mysterious power. Dracula's been sealed away since 1999, but his castle reappears during a solar eclipse, pulling Soma and his friend Mina into its depths. The story unravels as Soma discovers his true nature and battles against dark forces vying for Dracula's power. Aria of Sorrow sticks to the series' roots with its 2D side-scrolling action, but adds RPG elements that really up the ante. You level up Soma by defeating enemies, and this progression system kept me engaged, always pushing to strengthen my character. The range of weapons, despite the futuristic setting, leans heavily on medieval armaments, which is a neat juxtaposition that feels uniquely Castlevania. But the real game changer here is the tactical soul system. Almost every enemy can drop a soul, granting Soma new abilities. This system adds so much depth and variety to the gameplay. It's like a treasure hunt, always exciting to see what new power I'd get next. It's a game that not only Castlevania fans but all gamers should experience. It takes what you love about the series and elevates it to a whole new level. Castlevania III: Dracula's Curse, 1989. Castlevania III: Dracula's Curse is a classic that holds a special place in most of our hearts. It's a game that took the Castlevania series back to its roots, while adding its own unique twists. So, what's the story? Set in the year 1476, we're thrown into a dark Gothic world where Count Dracula is wreaking havoc across Europe with his army of monsters. Enter Trevor C. Belmont, an ancestor of Simon Belmont, who's called upon to stop Dracula's menace. The plot straightforward yet captivating, perfectly setting the stage for a classic vampire hunting adventure. As I remember playing it, I felt like I was part of an epic tale of good versus evil, with the fate of Europe hanging in the balance. This one ditches the RPG elements of its predecessor and returns to the platforming action of the original game, but with a significant twist. It's non-linear. This was a game changer for me. You're not just moving from left to right, you're making choices that affect your journey through Dracula's realm. You can choose different paths and recruit one of 3 companions, Cypher, Grant, or Alucard, each with their own abilities. This variety in gameplay keeps things fresh and exciting. Whether you're a long-time fan or new to the series, Dracula's Curse is a must-play, a true classic that stands the test of time. Super Castlevania IV, 1991. Super Castlevania IV is a title that many of us Castlevania fans hold dear. A game that redefined what a Castlevania game could be, especially with its debut on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The game takes us back to the classic Castlevania setting in 1691 Transylvania. You step into the boots of Simon Belmont, tasked with the monumental challenge of defeating the vampire Dracula. This plot might sound familiar, but it's the execution that makes it so compelling. Super Castlevania IV really sweeps us off our feet with its gameplay. This side-scrolling platformer is where you control Simon through a series of increasingly challenging levels. The game feels both familiar and fresh, with the traditional Castlevania mechanics intact but significantly improved. For instance, Simon's whip can now be controlled in 8 directions, adding a new layer of strategy and skill to combat. Holding down the attack button lets the whip go limp, allowing for more nuanced defensive moves. The game's level design is a masterpiece. Each level is intricately designed with a perfect blend of platforming challenges and enemy encounters. The addition of Mode 7 graphics in some levels adds a dynamic twist to the classic 2D gameplay. And let's not forget the secondary weapons that consume hearts. They add a strategic element to how you approach each battle, but it's the way it builds on these foundations that makes it stand out. It's a reminder of how a great game can transcend its era and continue to enchant players for generations.
Questionable things.
Castlevania Lords of Shadow, 2010. Castlevania Lords of Shadow is a remarkable reboot of the classic Castlevania series, taking the franchise in a bold new direction while respecting its roots. This game really stands out in my memory for several reasons, which I'll shortly go into. Set in a beautifully rendered Middle Ages, the story revolves around Gabriel Belmont, a tormented hero on a quest to defeat the Lords of Shadow and resurrect his wife. This plot brings a fresh narrative to the Castlevania universe, focusing on a deeply personal and emotional journey. The storyline is gripping, enhanced by top-notch voice acting and a story that's more complex than in previous Castlevania games. Coming to the gameplay now. It transitions the series into a 3D action-adventure game, offering the same experience of combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. Gabriel's primary weapon is the Combat Cross, a versatile whip-like weapon that allows for a wide range of attacks and combos. The combat system is robust and satisfying, with the ability to unlock new moves and skills. The light and shadow magic system adds another layer to combat, allowing for defensive and offensive spells, respectively. This system requires strategic thinking, as you have to decide when to use magic to boost your attacks or to heal. We found it to be a memorable and thrilling journey and a worthy addition to the Castlevania legacy. Castlevania 1999. Castlevania, also known as Castlevania 64, has marked a significant turning point for the series with its jump into the 3D realm. Released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, it was an ambitious attempt to translate the beloved franchise into a new dimension, and it left quite an impression on me. The story unfolds in 1852, a century after Dracula was forced into a deep slumber. However, the rise in humanity's vices awakens him, bringing 2 heroes to the forefront: Carrie Hernandez, a magically gifted orphan, and Reinhard Schneider, the whip-wielding whip-wielding Belmont heir. Their mission? To penetrate Dracula's imposing castle in Transylvania and put an end to his reign. The narrative, set against this gothic backdrop, is compelling and adds a sense of urgency and depth to the gameplay. As you progress through the game, you'll feel a genuine connection to the character's quest, eager to see how their journey would unfold. The transition to 3D was a bold move for Castlevania. Players control either Carrie or Reinhardt, each with their unique combat styles and abilities. The game combines action-adventure elements with platforming challenges and some survival horror aspects. The combat cross for Reinhardt and magical powers for Carrie provide distinct gameplay experiences. The implementation of a day-night cycle was particularly intriguing, affecting the gameplay in various ways, like the opening of certain doors only at specific times. It may not be the most polished entry in the Castlevania saga, but it's a memorable one that showed how the series could evolve and adapt to new gaming landscapes. Castlevania Bloodlines, 1994. Castlevania Bloodlines, known in Japan as Vampire Killer and as Castlevania The New Generation in PAL regions, is a unique gem in the Castlevania series that I fondly remember playing on my Sega Genesis. Released in 1994, it brought a refreshing twist to the franchise. The game sets itself apart with a plot that intertwines with real-world history, taking place during the First World War. The story revolves around Elizabeth Bartley, a vampire orchestrating the war as a sacrificial rite to resurrect her uncle Dracula. Players step into the shoes of either John Morris, Quincy Morris's son, and a whip-wielding vampire hunter, or Eric Alucard, whose girlfriend falls victim to vampirism. Their journey across war-torn Europe, battling the undead and eventually Dracula himself, is both gripping and atmospheric. Bloodlines is classic Castlevania with some added fun. The game felt faster and more action-oriented, a perfect fit for the Sega Genesis. Players navigate through levels, combating enemies, and overcoming platforming challenges. What sets it apart is the choice of characters. John Morris wields the iconic whip, while Eric Alucard uses a spear, offering a different playstyle and abilities. This choice affects not just combat, but also how you navigate through levels, as John can swing through gaps with his whip and Eric can perform high jumps. The game not only pays homage to the classic Castlevania formula, but also innovates, which was both familiar and refreshingly different. Castlevania Curse of Darkness, 2005. Castlevania Curse of Darkness, released in 2005 for PlayStation 2 and Xbox, is a title that definitely shook up the traditional Castlevania formula and left a lasting impression on me. Its 3D gameplay and darker, more complex narrative set it apart from its predecessors. The plot takes us to 1479, just 3 years after Castlevania III Dracula's Curse. The story introduces Hector, a former devil forge master under Dracula's command. The narrative revolves around Hector's quest for revenge against Isaac, another forge master responsible for the death of Hector's fiancée, Rosalie. This personal and emotionally charged storyline really drew me in, as Hector grapples with his dark past and the moral complexities of seeking vengeance. It's a plot that adds a depth and richness to the Castlevania universe that I found both compelling and thought-provoking. Diverging from the classic whip-wielding Belmonts, Hector's arsenal includes a variety of weapons, enhancing the combat experience with greater diversity and dynamism. The game's unique devil forgery skill, which allows Hector to craft and control demonic creatures called innocent devils, adds a strategic layer to combat puzzle solving. The inclusion of characters such as Trevor Belmont also maintains a connection to the series lore, adding a sense of continuity. Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, 2005. Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow was released in 2005 and was a memorable entry in the Castlevania series and the first to hit the Nintendo DS. As a sequel to Aria of Sorrow, continued Soma Cruz's story with added depth and gameplay elements that were a delight to experience. Picking up where Aria of Sorrow left off, Dawn of Sorrow finds Dracula defeated, with his powers now residing in his reincarnation, Soma Cruz. Soma, along with his allies, faces a new threat, a cult intent on resurrecting a new Dark Lord by killing Soma. I remember being completely absorbed in Soma's journey, feeling a mix of suspense and excitement as the story unfolded. The plot cleverly weaves elements of betrayal, friendship, and destiny, keeps you hooked from start to finish. The gameplay in Dawn of Sorrow builds upon its predecessor by integrating elements from platformers and RPGs, along with the tactical soul system from Aria of Sorrow. The magical seal system, utilizing the DS stylus to draw patterns and defeat enemies, was a unique feature that I found particularly engaging. It added an extra layer of challenge and interactivity that was perfect for the DS. The game features an expansive castle with varied environments, from haunting forests to intricate temples. The tactical soul system remains a standout feature, offering a wide range of abilities and tactical options in combat. Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. Next up, we have Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, which was released in 2006 for the Nintendo DS. It marked an exciting phase in the Castlevania series with its innovative gameplay and engaging story. Set in 1944 Europe during World War II, Portrait of Ruin continues the story from Castlevania Bloodlines. This historical setting adds a unique layer to the game's atmosphere. The story centers around Jonathan Morris, the son of John Morris from Bloodlines, and Charlotte Orlin, a powerful mage. The plot, intertwining with real-world events, adds a certain depth to the Castlevania lore. The gameplay really rocks with its two-character gameplay mechanic. Players can switch between Jonathan and Charlotte at any time, which not only adds variety to combat, but is also crucial for solving puzzles and exploring the castle. The dual crush attacks, where Jonathan and Charlotte combine their powers, are visually spectacular and strategically significant. The game expands the Castlevania universe beyond Dracula's castle, with players exploring new environments within magical paintings, each with its distinct theme and challenges. The game also offers multiple modes and alternate characters, providing high replay value. I particularly enjoyed the boss rush mode and challenges it offered, as well as the thrill of exploring the castle with different character abilities in the alternate modes. It's such a great addition to the series too. Really lives up to the expectations.
I will toy with you
Castlevania Order of Ecclesia 2008. Castlevania Order of Ecclesia was released for the Nintendo DS in 2006. It's a title that resonates strongly with me as a Castlevania enthusiast. Its unique narrative and gameplay mechanics add a refreshing dimension to the series. The plot goes like this. Imagine you're in the 1800s, after the era of Richter Belmont. Order of Ecclesia departs from the Belmont clan narrative. The story revolves around Shanoa, a member of the Order of Ecclesia, an organization dedicated to combating Dracula in the absence of the Belmonts. The plot thickens as Shanoa, chosen to wield the powerful Dominus glyphs, loses her memory and emotions due to a betrayal by her colleague Albus. I found myself deeply intrigued by Shanoa's journey, which is not just about retrieving the stolen glyphs, but also about self-discovery and confronting deception within her own order. The gameplay in here breaks new ground with the glyph system. This system allows Shanoa to absorb glyphs from enemies, granting her a variety of magical and weapon abilities. The game also includes an overworld map, which opens up various environments like forests and oceans, adding diversity to the exploration elements typical of the series. Unique to this title is the incorporation of side quests, providing additional challenges and rewards. The game extends its replay value with new modes unlocked upon completion, such as the Albus mode, where players can experience the story from a different perspective. The online features, including item trading and head-to-head combat, were innovative additions that enhanced the overall experience. Shanoa's quest, coupled with the innovative glyph system and the expansive game world, made Order of Ecclesia a memorable and enriching experience, solidifying its place as a hallmark in the Castlevania legacy. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 was released in 2014 and is a game I remember vividly for its bold narrative and expansive gameplay. As a sequel to the 2010 Lords of Shadow, it brought a fascinating twist to the Castlevania franchise. Set in both medieval and modern worlds, the game follows a weakened Dracula, formerly Gabriel Belmont, on his quest to defeat Satan, his former enemy. The narrative intertwines Dracula's past with his present struggles, making for a compelling storyline captured my attention. The plot opens with a powerful recap of Gabriel's transformation into Dracula and his tragic encounters with his son Trevor and grandson Simon. Fast forward 1,000 years, Dracula awakens in a cathedral in modern times, setting the stage for an epic battle against Satan's acolytes and the eventual confrontation with Satan himself. I found the interplay between past and present, combined with Dracula's internal conflicts, to be both engaging and deeply moving. Lords of Shadow 2 offers an open-world experience, a departure from its linear predecessor. Players control Dracula, who wields the Shadow Whip, along with new abilities like the Void Sword and Chaos Claws, which add variety to combat. The game's incorporation of shape-shifting abilities and tactical use of Dracula's powers, like turning into mist or a rat, adds a unique twist to exploration and stealth. Castlevania Circle of the Moon 2001. Coming up next is Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which was released in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance. The story takes place in 1830 and deviates from the traditional Belmont clan narrative. The protagonist, Nathan Graves, is a young vampire hunter who was trained by Maurice Baldwin, a renowned vampire hunter. The plot unfolds with Dracula being revived by his minion Camilla, leading to the capture of Maurice. Nathan, alongside Maurice's son Hugh, falls into Dracula's castle and embarks on a quest to rescue his mentor and thwart Dracula's evil plans. The dynamics between Nathan and Hugh, who feels overshadowed by Nathan, add a layer of depth to the story. Coming to the gameplay. As Nathan, players go through a sprawling castle filled with monsters, using the iconic whip and a variety of sub-weapons like the axe, holy water, and dagger. With new areas of the castle becoming accessible, Nathan acquires abilities like double jumping and wall kicking. A standout feature is the dual setup system, aka DSS, which uses magic cards to create a wide array of magical effects. This system allows for over 100 different combinations, giving players the freedom to experiment with various powers and strategies. Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, 2002. Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance was released for the Game Boy Advance in 2002. It's a game that definitely holds its ground in the Castlevania series. Taking place 50 years after the legendary Simon Belmont defeated Dracula, Harmony of Dissonance focuses on his grandson, Juste Belmont. The story kicks off with the kidnapping of Juste's childhood friend, Lydie Erlanger, leading Juste and his friend Maxim Kashin on a rescue mission into Dracula's enigmatic castle. The narrative unfolds with a sense of urgency and mystery, as Maxim suffers from amnesia and strange personality shifts, adding a layer of intrigue to their quest. I found myself thoroughly engrossed in the story, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within the castle's walls. The gameplay is classic Castlevania, but only with more fun. As Juste Belmont, you navigate through a monster-infested castle using the legendary vampire killer whip and an array of sub-weapons. The game introduces the concept of two interconnected castles, Castle A and B, with actions in one affecting the other, which I found particularly engaging. It adds a puzzle-solving aspect to the game, as you figure out how to progress by manipulating elements in both castles. The game's role-playing elements, such as leveling up and equipment customization, enrich the experience, making every enemy encounter meaningful. Castlevania 1986. Castlevania, the gem of a game in the iconic series, first graced the Family Computer disk system in Japan in 1986 and later the NES in North America and Europe. The game's story is straightforward yet pretty engaging. You step into the boots of Simon Belmont, a descendant of legendary vampire hunters. Armed with the renowned vampire killer whip, Simon enters Dracula's castle with a mission to vanquish the notorious Count, who was resurrected a century after being defeated by Simon's ancestor. The plot, infused with elements from classic horror tales, sets the stage for an epic showdown against the forces of darkness. The sense of urgency in defeating Dracula before he unleashes havoc is palpable throughout the game. Honestly, the gameplay is a masterclass in platform gaming. Spread across 6 blocks with 3 stages each, the game offers a total of 18 stages of increasing difficulty. The gameplay mechanics are simple yet effective. Simon can move, jump, crouch, climb stairs, and wield his magic whip against foes. The slight delay in the whip action adds a layer of strategy, as timing becomes crucial in combat. How cool is that? The satisfaction of defeating each boss and watching Dracula's castle collapse is a reward in itself. Castlevania Lament of Innocence, 2003. Alright, now to Castlevania Lament of Innocence, which is another super cool title in the Castlevania series, bringing the iconic franchise to the PlayStation 2 with a foray into 3D action-adventure gameplay. Story here is set in 1094. Lament of Innocence serves as a prelude to the age-old conflict between the Belmont clan and Dracula. The game tells the origin story of the legendary vampire killer whip and the Belmont's eternal struggle against darkness. You step into the boots of Leon Belmont, a noble knight on a quest to rescue his betrothed, Sarah, from the clutches of the malevolent vampire Walter Bernhard. Exploring Walter's sprawling castle as Leon Belmont offers a seamless blend of action and adventure. The game's open-ended design, complete with puzzles and hidden rooms, keeps you hooked, urging you to uncover every secret the castle holds. You start with the Whip of Alchemy, which later evolves into the more powerful Vampire Killer. The combat is fluid and satisfying, allowing you to combine different sub-weapons with magical orbs to unleash devastating attacks. Unique to this installment is the ability to unlock and play as 2 additional characters, Pumpkin and the vampire Akeem Armster. Each character offers a distinct play style. Pumpkin, wielding the same whip as Leon but with enhanced abilities, and Akeem, with his unique 5 flying swords, presenting a fresh challenge and perspective within the game's universe. The game's exploration of the Belmont's origin story adds a rich layer to the series' mythology, making it a must-play for both long-time fans and newcomers to the saga. Castlevania Dracula X, 1995. Castlevania Dracula X captures the essence of Castlevania with its gothic atmosphere, challenging platforming, and memorable boss fights. The plot is medieval Transylvania. The game occurs several centuries after Simon Belmont's legendary defeat of Dracula. The game revolves around Richter Belmont, Simon's descendant, as he confronts a revived Dracula. The Count, seeking revenge on the Belmont lineage, kidnaps Richter's girlfriend, Annette, and her sister, Maria. Armed with the sacred Belmont family whip, Richter ventures into Dracula's castle to rescue them and once again vanquish the vampire lord. Dracula X retains the classic Castlevania platforming style, but introduces its own twists. Branching paths through levels add a layer of exploration and replayability that wasn't as prevalent in earlier Castlevania titles. The game does away with game saves, a feature in Rondo of Blood, and instead opts for a password system. While you can't play as Maria like in Rondo of Blood, Dracula X offers 3 different endings based on whether you rescue Annette, Maria, neither, or both, which adds a strategic element to your journey through the castle. All in all, Castlevania Dracula X felt like a familiar yet distinct experience within the Castlevania universe. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness, 1999. Released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, Castlevania Legacy of Darkness tells the story of Cornell, a man-beast on a mission to save his adoptive sister, Ada, from being sacrificed to resurrect the infamous Dracula. The adventure begins in a tragic setting, with Cornell returning to his village, only to find it destroyed by Dracula's minions. His quest leads him to Dracula's castle, following the trail of Ada's pendant. The story weaves through various encounters, including the tragic tale of the Aldrey family, whose patriarch has been turned into a vampire. Cornell's journey is not only a physical battle against monsters, but also an emotional struggle to protect those he loves. Coming to the gameplay now, this game embraces a 3D gameplay style, incorporating challenging platforming elements. Players navigate through hazardous environments, jumping between platforms and confronting enemies. The game successfully blends gothic horror with survival horror elements, placing players in intense situations that evoke feelings of stress and vulnerability. Combat is engaging and varied, with the ability to transform into a werewolf and utilize unique abilities. The survival horror sequences, particularly the battles against vampires and other creatures, are nerve-wracking and elevate the gameplay beyond typical platforming action. Castlevania Chronicles, 1993. In Castlevania Chronicles, players step into the role of Simon Belmont, the brave vampire hunter. His mission is as timeless as the Castlevania series itself, to defeat the notorious Count Dracula, who's been spreading terror across the land. This version features redesigned and new stages, specifically crafted to utilize intricate and dynamic obstacles, elevating the challenge and excitement. A notable gameplay feature is Simon's ability to attack diagonally, adding a strategic layer to combat. A cool part is that the game also includes all the special items and sub-weapons from the original, along with the introduction of a new item, the Herb, which adds a tactical health management element. This version of Akumaho Dracula is known for its high difficulty, a trait that's always intrigued me as a player seeking a challenge. Castlevania Chronicles addresses this with an arrange mode, offering a balanced and more accessible gameplay experience. Additionally, the arrange mode unlocks special features like an art gallery and a time attack mode, providing extra content that enriches the overall experience. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, 1987. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is another game that I remember playing on the NES. It marked a significant departure from its predecessor, introducing RPG elements and an open-world exploration style that was quite advanced for its time. In this installment, Simon's journey is driven by a need to reverse a deadly curse. The plot unravels with the revelation that Dracula's body was split into 5 parts, and Simon must retrieve these parts and take them to the ruins of Dracula's castle. The climax was enhanced by the multiple endings, a feature that added significant replay value and made each playthrough feel personal. Now to the gameplay. It's a notable evolution in the series, incorporating elements like a day-night cycle that affected enemy strength and NPC availability. This mechanic not only added a layer of strategy, but also a real sense of time passing in the game. The introduction of an experience rating system was another aspect I found compelling, adding an RPG flavor to the game. The main goal? To collect the body parts of Dracula, each with its unique utility, kept the gameplay engaging and varied. Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, 1991. Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, a game that landed on Game Boy back in 1991. The treachery of Dracula, using Soleil's mystical powers to regain his human form and rebuild his castle, creates a scenario filled with emotional stakes. As Christopher, the challenge is not only to defeat Dracula, but also to rescue and redeem his son. The gameplay in Belmont's Revenge felt like a significant upgrade from its predecessor. The introduction of sub-weapons, including holy water and axes, or the cross in the Japanese version, added some diversity to the combat. The freedom to choose the order in which to tackle the four themed castles, air, plant, earth, and crystal, reminded me of Mega Man. The large trap rooms on each level added an element of unpredictability and challenge that'll keep you on your toes. The password system was a practical feature, especially for a portable game. It allows you to pick up where you left off, a necessity for gaming on the go. The game's North American version replaced the cross sub-weapon with an axe, which altered the gameplay slightly with its unique upward arc trajectory. Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth, 2009. Castlevania: The Adventure is set in Transylvania. The game dives deep into the lore of Count Dracula, portraying him not just as the infamous vampire, but as a fanatical demon worshipper and sorcerer. This backstory adds layers to Dracula's character, making him more than just a typical villain. He's someone who's grown in power through dark rituals, turning into a demon king. Is set for a showdown with Christopher, an ancestor of the renowned Belmont family. The story brilliantly sets up a David and Goliath scenario, with Christopher pitted against the increasingly powerful Count Dracula. Playing as Christopher Belmont, you'll navigate through a series of challenges that are both exciting and demanding. The game retained the classic platformer elements that the series is known for, with Christopher using the iconic whip to fight off demons and navigate the treacherous castle. The game's difficulty was notable, with various traps and enemies that required strategic thinking and quick reflexes to overcome. The absence of sub-weapons, a staple in other Castlevania games, made the adventure distinct, emphasizing the use of the whip and adding a layer of difficulty. It may not have had the complexity of its successors, but it laid the groundwork for future Castlevania titles on handheld devices, proving that great adventures could come in small packages. Vampire Killer, 1986. Just like in the original Castlevania, you take on the role of Simon Belmont in this game. With the mystical whip passed down from his father, Simon's mission is clear: navigate the treacherous castle and put an end to Count Dracula's reign of terror. Vampire Killer deviated significantly in its gameplay from the original NES Castlevania. While it shared the same soundtrack, characters, and locations, the structure was different. The stages were more labyrinth-like, requiring a bit of exploration and puzzle solving to progress. Finding keys to unlock exits added an extra layer of challenge that I personally enjoyed. The ability to purchase items from merchants hidden in the castle was a neat addition. It added a strategic element to the gameplay, as you had to decide what items were worth spending your hard-earned heart points on. The range of weapons and items, from throwing daggers to battle axes, provided a variety of ways to tackle the challenges Dracula's castle threw at you. While it may not have been as widely recognized or celebrated as its NES counterpart, Vampire Killer offered its own special charm and stood as a standout title to the versatility and enduring appeal of the Castlevania franchise. Castlevania: The Adventure, 1989. This time, we're in Transylvania again, where our big bad Count Dracula has been up to no good for ages. Long before he became a full-fledged devil, this guy was a sorcerer doing all sorts of evil rituals and summoning demons. His powers keep growing, freaking out the villagers, until one day, Christopher Belmont, the one from the famous Belmont family, steps up. Christopher heads to Dracula's dark castle, braving demons and traps to take down Dracula. Classic hero stuff. Gameplay-wise, things are a bit different. No sub-weapons here, folks. Instead, candles heal you up or give you points. The whip gets upgrades, but watch out. Take a hit and it's downgrade city. No diagonal stairs in this one. Just ropes and a whole bunch of new enemies, like scythe-throwing Night Stalkers. The pace is super slow and jumping needs precision, which can be a bit of a pain, but also kind of adds to the charm. You've got 4 long stages, starting with a graveyard and woods, moving through a cave, finally heading up Dracula's castle. The design's simple but cool, with spikes, descending ceilings, and even an auto-scrolling area that'll keep you on your toes. Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate. Castlevania Lords of Shadow. This title was not just a great Castlevania game, it was a fantastic gaming experience that showed the potential for storytelling within the series. The story here was a cool and intricate tale of the Belmont family's ongoing struggle against Dracula. It cleverly wove together the lives of Gabriel Belmont, now Dracula, his son Trevor, grandson Simon, and Alucard. Each character's story was a piece of a larger, tragic family saga. The tragic transformation of Gabriel into Dracula and the ensuing family drama made the story more personal and compelling. As a side-scrolling action-adventure game, Mirror of Fate returned to the classic Castlevania gameplay that fans loved. Controlling different characters, each with their unique abilities and storylines, kept the gameplay fresh and interesting. The combat was fluid, and the use of the combat cross and other weapons felt satisfying. Exploring Dracula's castle was as atmospheric and haunting as ever, filled with challenging enemies, puzzles, and secrets. The game struck a great balance between action, exploration, and story, making each character's journey through the castle a distinct experience. Castlevania Legends 1997. Castlevania Legends always struck me as an interesting entry in the entire lineup. Its place as a prequel in the Castlevania series, though later declared non-canon, added an intriguing layer to the franchise's lore, focusing on Sonia Belmont's confrontation with the original Count Dracula. The game is set in the medieval times in Transylvania, painting a picture of a world where darkness is creeping in. Sonia Belmont, a character brimming with potential, takes the center stage as the first of the Belmont lineage to take on the vampire hunting mantle. Her meeting with Alucard, Dracula's son, who's also seeking revenge against his father, adds a fascinating dynamic to the story. The promise of an eternal struggle between good and evil, with Sonia's declaration that her family will always rise to challenge Dracula, sets a solemn and powerful tone for the series. Gameplay-wise, this one delivers the quintessential Castlevania experience. Sonia, armed with her whip, navigates through Dracula's castle, battling various foes and overcoming obstacles. The game introduces mini boss fights at the end of each stage, rewarding players with soul weapons, which add a strategic element to the gameplay. The two difficulty levels and password-based save states accommodate different types of players, from casual to hardcore. The Burning Mode, where Sonia becomes invincible and more powerful for a brief period, is a unique addition. It's a mechanic that allows for a burst of exhilarating gameplay, breaking the game's otherwise methodical pace. Haunted Castle. Haunted Castle brought the quintessential Castlevania experience to the arcades in 1988. Set in a peaceful village that has forgotten the terror of Dracula, the plot kicks off with a jolt of horror as Simon and Selina's wedding is disrupted by Dracula's dramatic return. The Dark Lord kidnaps Selina, and Simon, ever the devoted husband and hero, plunges into the depths of the demon castle to rescue her. It's a straightforward but compelling narrative, the kind that grabs you right from the get-go. As Castlevania's first arcade outing, Haunted Castle pops with visually stunning details, a marked improvement from its Famicom and MSX counterparts. The game spans 6 linear stages, each filled with characteristic elements from graveyards to Dracula's lair. It's a return to the series' roots of straightforward platforming action, a delightful nod to the simplicity of the original games. Enemies from the Famicom NES games like hopping hunchbacks and the standard undead array return with a vengeance. The game throws in unique challenges like a crumbling wall and a knight jumping out of a window, things that hadn't been seen in the series before. The weapon upgrade system in Haunted Castle is also a departure from the norm. Gone are the candles of previous games. Now, enemies drop hearts and weapons. The introduction of new weapons like dynamite and a boomerang, alongside unique ones like the cross that shoots rays, adds a fresh twist to combat. Plus, the challenge of limited continues and health refills via in-game payments adds a layer of arcade-esque urgency. Castlevania the Arcade. Castlevania the Arcade in Japan is an intriguing twist in the renowned Castlevania series. Released in 2009, this arcade game took a leap from the traditional platforming elements the series is known for, venturing into the realm of light gun shooters. The gameplay is a fresh take for the series, resembling more of a light gun shooter like the House of the Dead. Players use a special LED whip remote, reminiscent of a heavier Wii remote, to lash out at enemies on the screen. This physical interaction adds an immersive layer to the gameplay, making you feel like a real vampire hunter. The game's control system is also super unique, with a top thumb button for whip actions and a bottom button for sub-weapons like knives or crosses. Collecting hearts to refill sub-weapons, a staple of the series, remains integral here. The inclusion of familiar sub-weapons and the collection of hearts connect it to its roots, providing a nostalgic yet novel experience. The use of motion control to simulate the whip action gives a more tactile and engaging experience. Fighting enemies with physical movements adds to the excitement and challenge, making you feel more involved in the action. Castlevania Order of Shadows. Castlevania Order of Shadows is a mobile addition to the illustrious Castlevania series. It presents an intriguing side story set in the late 1600s. The story unfolds around the Belmont siblings, Desmond, Zoe, and Dolores. They confront the Order, a group seeking to resurrect Dracula for power and eternal life. The Belmonts, driven by a personal vendetta against the Order's leader, Rohan Kraus, suspected of their parents' murder, embark on a quest to thwart these dark plans. The plot thickens as Desmond faces and defeats Kraus, only to inadvertently aid in Dracula's resurrection. In a dramatic climax, Desmond confronts Dracula, emerging victorious, but left with an unsettling sense of unfinished business. It faithfully reproduces the classic Castlevania experience on a mobile platform. It blends 2D platforming and the iconic whip action seen in the series. The game's structure is linear with distinct levels, reminiscent of earlier Castlevania titles, but includes branching paths within stages leading to inevitable boss fights. RPG elements are prominent, with a leveling system enhancing player stats, various weapons, sub-weapons, and spells to collect and equip, plus an inventory of restorative items. Sub-weapons use MP, recharged by collecting hearts from enemies or candles, a familiar mechanic in the series. The mobile keypad controls, while less fluid than other titles due to hardware limitations, are adapted well for the game, ensuring an experience true to the series despite the platform's constraints. Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. Castlevania Grimoire of Souls marks a thrilling addition of the Castlevania series into the realm of mobile gaming. Set in a world where Count Dracula has been defeated, Grimoire of Souls unexpectedly resurrects the legendary vampire, thrusting the world back into turmoil. Genya Aricardo, secretly the Dhampir Alucard, Dracula's son, receives a cryptic letter warning of Dracula's resurrection. The story cleverly weaves in characters from various eras of Castlevania. Players traverse through the chaotic realms within the grimoires to quell the burgeoning darkness, facing familiar foes and unraveling a story steeped in Castlevania's gothic atmosphere. True to its roots, Grimoire of Souls offers classic 2D side-scrolling action. Players can choose from a roster of iconic characters like Simon Belmont and Maria Renard, each with unique abilities and styles. The game's RPG elements allow for character growth, enhancing replayability. With Grimoire of Souls, Castlevania continues to evolve, promising more thrilling adventures in the iconic vampire hunting saga. Castlevania Puzzle Encore of the Night. Last but not least, Castlevania Puzzle Encore of the Night. This one takes a unique spin on the classic Castlevania series, blending the puzzle genre with its iconic action-adventure roots. The plot closely follows the storyline of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. 4 years after Richter Belmont defeats Dracula, he mysteriously vanishes. Maria Renard sets out to find him, leading her to the re-emerging Castlevania. Alucard, Dracula's son, awakens to confront the evil stirring in his homeland. They explore Dracula's castle, encountering familiar enemies and unraveling the plot against a backdrop of retouched Symphony of the Night assets. Gameplay-wise, Encore of the Night is a departure from traditional Castlevania titles. It's primarily a drop-pieces puzzle game reminiscent of Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. Players engage in puzzle battles against enemies, aligning blocks of the same color to attack. The RPG elements are retained with an inventory system, allowing customization of weapons, armor, and spells. Players level up by defeating enemies, enhancing their character stats and abilities. The castle layout is similar to Symphony of the Night, offering various paths and areas to explore, with battles serving as gatekeepers to new sections. What makes Encore of the Night stand out in the Castlevania series is that it maintains the series' gothic aesthetic and dark atmosphere, but introduces gameplay that's accessible to puzzle game fans. And that's a wrap, guys. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button so you're up to date with all our newest uploads. And hey, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear if you have a Castlevania game in mind that really swept you off your feet. And we'll see you in the next one.